Yo, what is going on, everyone? Welcome inside the Red Mile Rundown, episode 78. I am your host, Johnny Stoke. Thank you so much for joining us today on the podcast. And, of course, alongside me from FlamesNation.ca, Canucks Army, if that's the way you like to bend, Robert Munich. How are we doing today, Robert?
I'm still pissed off about the draft lottery.
Are you?
I don't think I'm going to be able to get over it, John.
What part of the draft lottery is most upsetting? The Flames losing it? San Jose getting second? Or, for me, the worst part is that stupid team out east gets bailed out again.
You know what? Actually, I think for me, it's San Jose.
Which is fair.
You know, for them to jump up as many spots as they did after already getting Celebrini and getting Misa the year prior, like that really pissed me off, because now they're going to get Stenberg or they're going to get Chase Reed. They're guaranteed to get a really good player just to add to that already deep roster. And, you know, I look at the Sharks, I look at the Ducks. Like these are a couple teams in the Pacific Division that the Flames are going to need to catch up to here. Those are two really good young teams that are going to be good for a long time. So I actually, it was the Sharks that was the one where I was like, you know what, like that sucks for the Flames. That really does suck.
It's interesting how the Sharks will approach that number 2 pick, right? There's a lot of people talking about how they might trade down. For me, I think they might just pick best available player and then turn around and, well, now you're trading a Misa or an Eklund for a defenseman to fill your spot and if you're rostered. I'm like, what a nice place to be in if you're San Jose. If you're Mike Rear, what a nice options you've got there. You could trade the number 2 pick for a haul. Michael Misa probably fetch you a nice defenseman. William Eklund could probably fetch you something nice. Like, there's a ton of options for my career. So I get the hatred towards it. For me, it's just so happens that the 1 year the Leafs have a down year and things seem to be hitting the fan for them. And they had a debacle of a press conference. And I'm not a conspiracy guy, but that narrative does not help them out one bit when they have a draft lottery win like that. So they get bailed out again. Poor McKenna's going to have to go wear that ugly jersey out east and play for that team and hostile home environment. And so for me, every time Toronto seems to have a down season, they get bailed out with this generational or franchise-esque cornerstone player as they try to keep Austin Matthews in house. So I like both of those from you, Robert, and I like mine as well. Like, let's focus more on the Flames, though. What do you make of pick 6? I know a lot of people are mad the Flames dropped 2 spots. It is, quote-unquote, the worst-case scenario for the Flames. What do you make of the Flames sitting at 6? I'm still pretty high on the players that they could have gotten at 4 or 6. They're in the same echelon of player for me in my research that I've done. Where are you sitting with the Flames at number 6, Robert?
Yeah, I think it's fine. The way that, you know, just from everything I've been reading, the way I view the first round is you basically have McKenna, Stenberg as your clear cut and 2 best players. And then it feels like Chase Reed or Caleb Malhotra. I think those 2 guys are kind of in that next tier. And then from picks 5 through, we'll call it 10, you know, it could go any way. Yeah. And picks 5 through 10, it feels like those are all really good players. I don't know if they're franchise altering players, like, you know, the elite of the elite, but I do think that they're guys that you can add to this already strong core group of young players the Flames have. And, you know, like if it's a Vigio Bork, for example, you know, could he be a decent second line center? Like, I don't know if he has the size to be a first line center. There's very few first line centers in the league that are small guys, kind of like a Braden Point. He's kind of the exception, not the rule. So, and then if you get a defenseman, whether it's Keaton Verhoff or Carson Karls or Smits from Latvia, you know, like it feels like those guys could be, you know, I think their upside is like a first pair guy, but maybe not like that truly like elite number 1 defenseman, your Drew Doughty, Duncan Keith, Zdeno Chara kind of guys. So it feels like they're getting a good player. I'm excited for whoever they're going to select in that spot. But at the same time, I think my expectations are that they're going to be, you know, added to the core group of players, but I don't know if they're going to be like the game changing guy this organization needs. And I think they'll probably end up getting that at the 27 or 28 drafts. Hopefully they can pick in the top 3 in both of those.
Yeah, I'm with this draft feels like number 6, and this is no disrespect to anyone who knows my old podcast or has talked to me online, knows how much I love Sean Monahan, but it feels like we're in that area where we're going to get a Sean Monahan-esque player, a guy who could fill a top spot, but probably is better off as your 1B option or your 2 option, right? So nothing to disrespect these players. That's still a really good player. Someone you're going to add to your top 6 or your top 4 on the back end, and someone that's going to play for you. So I'm excited for how it's going to shape up because I see it very similar to you. I think you got your 4 guys that are probably going to go in the top 4 in some order in your McKenna, Stenberg, Reed, and Holcher, like you mentioned. But Keaton Verhoff, Carson Carrolls, Albert Smith, Tynan Lawrence, if people still want to have that conversation. Vigo Bjork, Oscar Hemming is a guy that not a lot of people are talking about, and Daxton Rudolph. There's a lot of guys I just listed off there that could be available and should be available and will be available for the Flames at number 6. So excited how that all shapes down, Robert. It's gonna be fun. I like draft season. It's gonna be a lot of fun.
Matt, I'd be curious to get your opinion on this. The one guy who I think is very underrated is Daxton Rudolph. I've been watching some of the WHL playoffs. I've been watching the finals, and just have to say it's great to hear Peter Labardius back on the call. He's doing such a good job, and cool to see Cami Kepke on the broadcast too. Yep. So local connection there. But I'm watching quite a bit of the Raiders this spring, and I'm just so impressed with Daxton Rudolph. I just think he is an absolute stud of a defenseman. On Daily Faceoff, our prospects expert Stephen Ellis put together his mock draft after the draft lottery, and he had Daxton Rudolph going 12th, and I'm thinking I feel like Rudolph should be like a top 8, like top 7 guy. I really think he's going to be that good. I'd be curious to get your thoughts on him.
I like him. I like him a lot. I think if you ask me to pick between Carlson Carls or Daxton Rudolph, it's hard to pick between them. It's basically which hand do you want? Do you want the left-handed shot or the right-handed shot? I think they're very similar players. Daxton does a lot of things that people don't really realize, and the stats sometimes don't jump off the page at you, but you watch, like you have, Robert, you watch him play, and he does a lot of the little things in game that don't come up on your score sheet, and you need those type of players. I'm a WHL fan. Everyone who knows me knows that. And so I'm big on these guys. And so if you told me that Daxton Rudolph goes ahead of guys like Albert Smits, I'd absolutely believe you, because that's how good of a player he is. I'm agreeing with you here that not a lot of people are talking about him, and they should be. He should be in that same conversation as the Keaton Verhoff, Carlson Carls, Albert Smits conversation. Do not forget the name Daxton Rudolph. He's a great young player, and someone's going to give him that right-handed shot thing. I think a team in that top, maybe a Seattle at number 7, or even Winnipeg at number 8, right-handed shot defenseman to go on that blue line. It's something that they probably could use and need, and I could see him definitely going in that area as well. I like a good call by you, Robert. I like the player.
Yeah, he's 6'3", he's over 200 pounds, and he's got the size. Yeah, he's the right shot. He's very dynamic offensively. On that Prince Albert team, it's not like the most talented or skilled team in the world. I think they play a really good team game, but outside of Braden Coots up front, there's not a whole heck of a lot of talent there, and he led that team in scoring by 9 points this year, and he's lighting it up in the playoffs right now. I just think he's a really good player, and it's gonna be really interesting to see where he ends up going. If the Flames are picking in that 8 to 10 range, that's a guy who I would have circled on my list for sure.
Let's just say if he falls to that 12-13 spot like Ryan has in his mock draft, I'd entertain the idea of a team trying to move up to get him. He's that type of player. You can look at teams down below, what does St. Louis do with their 3 first-round picks, type of player. What does San Jose do with their 2nd first-round pick? Could that be someone they potentially move up to grab ahead of other teams just to make sure they get their guy? Because he's for me, he's that type of player. He thinks the game really, really well, and it's hard to have thinking the game come up on a stat or a counting stat, but that's the type of game that he plays. So it's an interesting name for sure heading into the draft. Let's go back to the Flames here. We're doing part 3 of our report cards. The first 2 episodes have gotten quite good response online and in my DMs. I don't know about you, Robert, and people are liking our grading system. People are enjoying the conversation, and it's fun to look back on these players. And so I'm interested to see where this next group goes, because there's some fun names in this group. Let's start with Joel Farabee. Robert, good season for Joel overall. I think he the longer the season went on, the stronger he got. He gets the A after the trade deadline. He gets a lot more responsibility, and he seemed to flourish. And so for me, this guy's going to get an A because he beats the expectations I had for him. I thought middle six swinger guy might be able to give us 15 goals type of a season. Try to carve out a role, a long-term fit. And then the question that always will remain with these U.S. born players, does he want to stay in Calgary? Well, the last third of the season, he played like he definitely wants to be in Calgary and be a leader. What'd you make of Joel Farabee?
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I mean, heading into the year, I had no idea what to expect from him because when the Flames acquired him, he played 31 games for the Flames last season, and he only put up 6 points. That's like I think it's about a 17-point pace over 82 games. And, I think one of the big reasons why they brought him in was to help push them over the top to get them in the playoffs. And I think his struggles, along with Morgan Frost, were a big reason why the Flames weren't able to get over the top and weren't able to get to that 97-point range. So, in the offseason, I was even thinking, if this is the guy you're going to get, and he's got 3 years left on his deal, he's making $5.5 million. I mean, is there a way to potentially trade him? And I was even looking at a potential buyout because it literally wouldn't have cost the Flames anything on their cap. So yeah, heading into the year, expectations were pretty low, and he came in and he played great. I thought he was really good all season long. There's a lot of players in the NHL who are super inconsistent just with their level of play. And I think it was the complete opposite for Farabee. It felt like he stuck to a pretty solid level of play from the start of the season to the end of the season. I mean, when the team was terrible at the beginning of the year, he was one of the lone bright spots. He was playing really well. And he was just one of those guys who was snake bitten. And I thought he carried that momentum, throughout the entire season. And like you said, after the trade deadline, when, your Kadri, Weegar, and Anderson were gone, and there was quite a big leadership void there, feels like he really stepped up there. I mean, he was wearing the letter. Feels like he was one of those guys that took some younger players under his wing. So, the on-ice portion was pretty impressive. The off-ice portion was pretty impressive. He was a good defensive player. He was, penalty killing. He was blocking shots. He was playing good defense. He put up some points, 38 points in 82 games, 20 goals for the third time in his career. So yeah, it was a pretty impressive season for Farabee. And if he could be that guy for the next, let's call it 6 to 8 years, then yeah, I think if you're the Flames, you definitely would consider bringing him back on maybe a 5 or 6 year contract. I mean, he's only 26 years old. By the time he signs his new deal, he'll be 28. So maybe if you sign him to, maybe we'll call it a 4 or 5 year deal, and you sign him into his early to mid 30s, he could be a solid middle six contributor, part of that group that kind of fills out your roster around your young players. So, yeah, really, really good season from Farabee. The grade I'll give him is a B plus. Thought he was rock solid. I think I would have gone in the A direction had he got a few more points. Mm-hmm. If he was in that kind of maybe 45 to 50 point range. But the 38 points kind of brings it down to a B plus for me. So that's where I'm going.
He must have led the team in posts as well. Beginning of the season here, he was just hitting posts. You talk about maybe an extension if things go well for Farabee down the road here. I'm in agreement here if he can duplicate kind of what he did this season next year and going forward. You talk about needing veterans for your young group and playoff teams that need these guys. He fits that age range too of a guy that would be a great leader for a group coming out of the rebuild into being a playoff contending team, much like a Toffoli does in San Jose, that type of role. And so that's an interesting part you put in there, Robert. Got me thinking there a little bit. I do like it. I really am excited to see what he can do over 82 games next season. He's probably going to be part of that leadership group again for the Flames. Ryan Huska seems to have a lot of faith in Joel Farabee, and so a little bit more responsibility, a full season here coming up for him, and I think he's in for a good season next year if he can capitalize on this opportunity, whether it's in Calgary or otherwise. When his contract expires in a couple seasons here, he'll put himself in a good spot to cash in. So a good season from Joel Farabee.
Hey, just quickly.
Yeah.
I looked it up on NHL.com. You were bang on. Joel Farabee led the Flames in post hit this year. Yeah, he hit 8. Matt Coronado hit 7, and then Kadri hit 4.
Nice. Look at me go. That's
nailed it.
That's incredible. It just He had the feel of a guy at the beginning of the season. If a couple of those posts went earlier, he might have had a career year of goals and assists, and obviously then points. He was just snake bit in the beginning of the season, and the longer the season went on, the stronger he seemed to have played. It was awesome. Robert, he's compared a lot to maybe he's the next Blake Coleman. So let's go there. It's an interesting comparison comparing him to Blake Coleman, what Blake Coleman does for the Flames. Blake Coleman's expectations are probably sky high for a lot of people, as they were from me. I expected a lot from Blake this season. He had himself a decent season. He did miss some time with injuries, so only played the 69 games. He got to 20 goals again, which is nice. He was on the plus side of things when it was all said and done. It's hard to give him anything other than an A for me, because you kind of know what you get from Blake Coleman. He's kind of just like that trusty old Buick in the driveway, where you just know you're going to go out there. It's going to start right up. It's going to chug you along and do exactly what you need it to do. And after all of those trades, he too stepped up in a leadership role and continued to help push the Flames along. He was one of the reasons I think the Flames couldn't tank to that bottom 2 or 3 spot, because guys like Blake Coleman was helping to lead and actively trying to saboteur the tank season. What'd you make of number 20 for the Flames, Robert, and his season?
Yeah, he's so good. I think around the NHL, he is like criminally underrated. I love everything that he brings to the table, and this year was no different. And had he not missed those games, he was on pace to score 24 goals over 82 games, which would have led the Flames in goals. He was on pace for 44 points. So I mean, he would have been right there in terms of the scoring leader on the team. But the other impressive thing about him is, he was a plus 12 this year on, one of the worst teams in the NHL, which I just thought was extremely impressive. And, you take a look at his underlying numbers, like at 5-on-5, he outscored his opposition 41-37 when he was on the ice. The only other Flames to outscore their opposition at 5-on-5 this year who were regulars were Hunter Bruzstewicz and Rasmus Andersson. That's it. So that's impressive. The defensive side of the game, is pretty incredible for Coleman. Him and Michael Backlund are, one of the best defensive duos among forwards in the NHL. He penalty kills, he hits, he's a leader off the ice. Like he brings everything you could possibly want in a hockey player. He brings that to the table, and I'm such a massive fan of him. And the one thing, like, I do feel bad for him, because when he signed in Calgary, I think it was, with the intention that Gaudreau and Tkachuk were going to be here long term, and this was going to be a group where they were going to have a solid 3 to 4 year window where they had a chance to win. And, that looked like the case in year one when they go to the second round, but then it all fell apart after that. And I don't think Coleman had ever expected something like that to happen. So I did actually kind of feel bad for him that things didn't work out from a on ice success, like from a team perspective. He only went to the playoffs once. Flames have missed the playoffs 4 years in a row, and yeah, he's been a big part of those teams. So yeah, I kind of feel bad for him in that sense, but yeah, he was rock solid again. I'm such a big fan of his, and it's actually probably one of the best free agent contracts the Flames have ever signed. Like, particularly in modern Flames history, like this deal has worked out incredibly well for the Flames, and yeah, he's been a great player. It'll be interesting to see if this offseason is the time they trade him, or if they hold on to him until the deadline. I'm not sure what's going to happen there, but when we do look back on his time with the Flames, I think it'll be looked back on very positively. And yeah, he's just been a great person and a great player for this team. So yeah, I also give him an A as well.
And he doesn't complain, and he wants to be here. That's the other part of that too. Like, things haven't gone his way yet. He doesn't complain about it, right? He still wants to be part of the solution rather than part of anything else. So I do think the Flames do move on from him when it's all said and done. And I do think that it might go down the same way a Lindholm or a Rasmus Andersson-esque type trade happened just before the trade deadline. Someone's just going to blow their socks off and give him an offer. And like you, Robert, you look back on him being a free agent and the Flames bringing him in and what they were getting from this player, him exactly what they signed up for. And I dare someone to name a better free agent signing. What's a better one out there? Like, you look back on their free agent signings, you think, okay, what do you make of the Tanev signing or the Markstrom signing? And then there's those awful ones they did a few years before with Troy Brouwer and those type of players. Maybe Nazem Kadri ravels as one of them that's just as good as Blake Coleman, if not better. But for my money, he's probably the best free agent signing the Flames have ever done, especially in the modern era here. And he's been nothing but a good soldier for the Flames, and it's hard not to think that, hey, you're going to trade this guy, and then you're going to be on a mission to try to find someone exactly like this guy. And it's only because of contract and age that he's going to be moved along here, and that's unfortunate for the timing of Blake Coleman as a member of the Flames. Good season from number 20.
Okay, so just like a kind of a quick side conversation here. Two questions. One, in the Ryan Huska's, or I think, no, sorry, it was Craig Conroy's year-end press conference. He had mentioned that when he'd met with Blake Coleman, that Coleman told him, like, hey, if you guys if you guys are interested in keeping me, like, I would love to sign this summer. So I'd be curious to hear, what if you were in charge, what would you want to do with Blake Coleman? Would you look to bring him back on maybe like a 2 or 3 year contract, or would you look to trade him? And if you were to trade him, when would you want to do it?
I love Blake Coleman, and I've always regretted not getting his jersey earlier than I wanted to. But given where the Flames are at, given his age and his contract status, I think I would move him. And if it was up to me, I would do it at the draft. I would dangle it at the draft, use some draft capital, and be aggressive. I'm a big fan of the idea of using those 11 draft picks to be aggressive, to move up, say, in round 1 for something else, to use some second rounders and move up. And maybe you can attach Blake Coleman to something to help something happen for you. There are going to be, and there is, teams out there that are disappointed in their playoffs thus far. Dallas Stars come to mind as a team that early exit. Tampa Bay, early exit. Los Angeles isn't going to be happy about their early exit. Those guys up north are going to hate that they're early exit. And then there's teams that are going to be mad they didn't even make the playoffs. A team like Toronto who missed by a wide margin, and other teams that just missed are going to think that, hey, if we had one more piece, we can get over the top. So I'm capitalizing on what Blake Coleman is, his value, and the fact he still has term on his contract, 1 more year on his contract, to help solicitate something else for the betterment of the franchise. And it's not because I don't like Blake Coleman. It's just the position the Flames are at versus where Blake Coleman is at in his career.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I would definitely trade him, sometime between now and, like the beginning of free agency. It'll be interesting to see if like the retained slots play a role in that. Because I know teams in the offseason, you could go 10% over the cap during the offseason. So I guess maybe that salary retention spot might not matter. And, the cap's going up by $8 million. So that'll be kind of interesting to see how it happens. But like if I'm the Flames, I would like to get it done sooner than later, because number one, I don't want to go into next season with him on the team. Number one, because I don't want him to get hurt like he did last year.
Yep.
You want to trade that asset while while he's healthy and while he's performing at a high level. So you don't want to run the risk of injury. I would agree, you had mentioned that Coleman was a big reason why the Flames didn't get into like the bottom 2 or the bottom 3 of the standings. I totally agree with you. I think he was a big reason why they ended up finishing 4th last. So, if you take Coleman off your team this summer, that means that you don't have to worry about him being a driver on your team and giving you unnecessary points next year. And then there's also kind of like the off ice component. It might be kind of unfair for the Flames to have Coleman back here next year, like with such like a young family. He's got like kids that need to go to school, need to be put in school, and he just had like a young kid this offseason, and to have that uncertainty about where he's going to be playing hanging over him the entire year and hanging over his family the entire year, I think that would kind of suck for him. I think the Flames might do him a solid to trade him this summer and then give him and his family enough time to kind of figure out their lives and know that they're going to be in a certain place for an entire hockey season, not coming back to Calgary and then all of a sudden in November he gets traded and then everything gets thrown up and screwed up in their lives. So like, yeah, I think there's an on ice and off ice component as to why trading him this summer I think makes the most sense for the organization.
It's doing a guy a solid, right? Like he's done so much for your organization, and you have so much respect, mutual respect. That it's kind of doing a guy a solid, and it has happened before in the league. So I'm with you on that one there, Robert. One guy who's not going to get traded, and if they do trade him, I'm going to kind of wonder what the hell Craig Conroy's doing. Matvei Gridin came out of almost nowhere for a lot of people to have a sensational rookie season. It did take him a while to get points on the board. And once he started feeling good about himself, he was probably, if not the best forward for the Flames, best skater for the Flames by the end of the season. He was right near the top of a lot of people's list. Very impressive what Matvei Gridin did. Since I had such low expectations for him, I'm going to sound like a massive homer here, but I'm going to give him a B+ grade. I think that he came in here, he did a lot of things I wasn't expecting him to do. I thought he could be part of the NHL, but I thought he would be like a third line guy who was starting to score some points and learning the league. This guy exploded, and he was top line minutes for a lot of the year, power play minutes. Matvei Gridin, great year. What did you make of the young phenom for the Flames?
Yeah, he was awesome. He made the team out of camp, which was super impressive. It did look like initially to start the season, the NHL was maybe a little much for him in terms of like the pace and the strength and all that kind of stuff, which is totally fair. I mean, he's 19 years old, playing the QMJHL the season prior. So I had no problem with him getting sent down to the Wranglers. And even he mentioned on his locker cleanout day interview that he said that going to the American Hockey League really helped him, and which was great. And he went down there and he was an all-star and he lit it up. And then, basically from the Olympic break on, he was probably their most dynamic forward in terms of just playmaking, his vision, his passing, and then his shot too. Like his shot is just electric. So yeah, he was great, and for him to do what he did at this age, I just think is so impressive. The last time we saw a Flame come out of junior and come into the lineup and produce like that was like Kachuk maybe, back in 2016. So, this is kind of like unprecedented for like the last 10 years to see a player come in and play this well at that age. And to me, he showed that there is potential for him to be a top line winger in the NHL. Like, he's got the strength, he's got the size, he's got the skill, he's got the passing, he's got the shot, he's got the mentality, like the confidence to be that player. I'm really excited to see what the future holds for him. I'm project him to be kind of like a 70 to maybe like 85 point player for a lot of years in the NHL, and that would be a massive win for the Flames, because that would mean that he's part of that core group of players moving forward. So yeah, I gave him an A, just to do what he did at the age he did. I thought was really, really impressive, and I can't wait to see what the future holds for him. And Ryan Husker, Craig Conroy mentioned that Matvei Gridin told them in his exit interviews that he's going to lead the team in scoring next year, and I guess he like deadpanned, he was like dead serious about it. And
love it.
I love that confidence, love that attitude, and I think he's bang on. I absolutely think he's going to lead the Flames in scoring next year. So yeah, I'm pumped to see what he can do.
Not to make fun of his comments, but the bar's low with 45 points for Matt Coronado this year. But to have that confidence to sit in that room with your boss, the guy who's making the decisions about your career, and just say, no, this is what's going to happen. You love that confidence from this kid, and that's why I think he was so good. He took the demotion to the AHL with the right attitude. He earned his call back up. I don't think there's any coincidence the Wranglers suffered offensively after he was recalled again. I don't think it's coincidence one bit. And he just took off, and the way that he had playing over and over, and the way that and the chemistry he seemingly found with Morgan Frost as well, I think really helps his game out. And he can play both sides, so he's a versatile player as well. Matvei Gridin has a big future ahead of him, and point per game player is definitely within the question of what he can be for the Calgary Flames, and that's a pretty dang good get at the end of the first round, going from a draft pick that a lot of people are like, who or what are we doing? I don't know this guy. What is this guy? To what should be and what feels like a top line player. Remarkable from number 92. Hell of a jersey number, by the way, too. Number 92.
And like in his final 15 games of the year, he put up 11 points. That's a 60-point pace over 82. So, well, I guess they're playing 84 games next year, so it'll be probably about a 61-point pace over 84 games. And I think that's a realistic target for him to hit, like be in that kind of 55 to 60 point range next year. I don't think that's out of the question at all.
That would be heads and tails above what the Flames got this year out of anybody. I'm for it. I am definitely for it. This next guy on the list, I couldn't think you could ask for anything more consistent out of the Flames this year, given what the Flames were this year, the turbulence of the season. This player was very consistent for me. He was exactly what I thought he would be. It sounds harsh to only give him a passing grade because the expectations for him were so spot on with what he actually gave you. Kevin Bahl, for me, was the model of consistency for the Flames this season, compared to what the team actually gave you. He was a big reason why Rasmus Andersson, I think, had a good start to his year and was able to be traded for the package he was traded for. And I think he's going to be a huge part of this Flames team going forward. Some of the Flames are going to lean on for years to come, much like they did back when Robin Regehr was around. They just leaned on that guy to shut down other teams' top guys. Kevin Bahl, outstanding season. What do you make of number 7? Because I quite liked what I saw this year.
Yeah, I mean, especially considering the role that the Flames asked him to play. I mean, this is a guy, when they acquired him, had played one full NHL season. It was like basically the New Jersey Devils' number 6 defenseman.
Yeah.
And pretty much from day one being brought to Calgary, they asked him to become a top pair defenseman, to play the biggest shutdown minutes and to play against the most difficult opposition. And like that's pretty crazy stuff to ask a guy from where Bahl was to where he is now. Like, it's very, very impressive. So yeah, I'm right there with you. Like, I mean, I gave him an A because this year I thought they asked so much of him, especially when Rasmus Andersson got traded. All of a sudden, Kevin Bahl was the team's number 1 defenseman. Like, that's crazy to say. And he played well. Like, he stepped up and he played really well. He's a very good defensive defenseman. You know, I think in an ideal world, you'd like him to be on your second pair at 5-on-5. But like I said, since coming to Calgary, he's been asked to essentially be their number 1 shutdown guy, and he's played that role incredibly well. And good on him. Like, in the defensive zone, especially, like, just with the reach he's got, the physicality, his ability to break up plays. I actually thought his passing got quite a bit better this year, and some of the offensive instincts, I think, got a little bit better. So yeah, I was thoroughly impressed by him. He's on a really good contract, and I see him and potentially a guy like Zane Parekh being a really good pair for the Flames moving forward. Like, if that can be your second D pair at 5-on-5, I think you're really happy for the next 4 or 5 years here. And hopefully they're able to find, you know, maybe like a Keaton Verhoff or Carson Karls in this year's draft to be the kind of number 1 defenseman in this group moving forward. But yeah, Bahl is just I think he's just been nothing but impressive. And yeah, giving him an A. I thought he was excellent this year.
And now you expect bigger things from him, right? Like, we all talk about him and what he brings to the Flames. You know, he's come. He got an injury at the end of the year, so he's got a bit longer of a summer than a few other players. But you think coming into next year, you're like, okay, now what more can you do for us, Kevin? Because we're going to need more from you. There's chances that a guy like Olli Maatta, maybe even a Zach Whitecloud, might not be part of the blue line for the full season via trades going out the door. Joe Hanley may be leaving. Somebody might be going out, and there might be more asked of this guy and what he can do for the Flames. And so I think expectations are going to continue to be high for this guy. He's earned those expectations, and he's meeting those expectations as well. This guy is playing outstanding hockey. It's not a sexy game he plays because he's just that old off the glass and out type of guy. But man, he is good at it, and he knows his role, and he plays it to a T. And he's going to make a good defensive pairing with a guy like a Parekh or a Bruzstewicz, or maybe hope a Lennon Dupont. Someone like that is going to help open those players up to play their game, knowing how reliable he is on the back end. It's a nice growth from what we saw a couple years ago in New Jersey to what he is now. One of the more underrated trades, I think, of Craig Conroy's tenure. They gave up a struggling Markstrom, who signed an interesting deal with New Jersey and was, let's be blunt, not good this year for New Jersey. And he's turned into being one of the best defensemen, if not the best defenseman for the Flames. It's pretty savvy trade from Craig Conroy at the end of the day, in my opinion.
I think you could argue that it's the best trade he's made so far.
Up there.
Goalies don't go for a lot in the trade market, and Markstrom, he was an older guy. He's coming off an up and down tenure with the Flames, and to be able to get a first round pick that turns into Cole Reshny, who looks like he could be potentially a top 6 center for you long term, and Kevin Bahl, a guy who's he's literally been your best defenseman, your best defensive defenseman, I should say, over the last couple of years, and signed a really nice deal. It's a grand slam home run of a trade. Like, it's either that or the Lindholm deal as the best one so far. But I think there's a legit argument to be made that it was the Markstrom deal. Just phenomenal work by Conroy.
Depending what Castagna turns into, I could also argue the Mackenzie Weegar deal is also up there as well. But that no doubt that Kevin Bahl for Markstrom swap, plus you add in Cole Reshny, what a nice bit of work from Craig Conroy for all those naysayers out there. Another guy who kind of seemingly came out of nowhere and took a role, and people were freaking out when he was on waivers to start the season. One of my favorite players of the season, and I really liked the role he started carving out for himself. And he was tagged with the task of being the anchor alongside Mackenzie Weegar, who was really slowing down this year, it feels like, and was having a tough year. Yan Kuznetsov came out of seemingly nowhere to be a guy relied on by the Flames. Even got a lot of top 4 minutes, like I mentioned, alongside Mackenzie Weegar. He chewed on some minuses because of it, because 52 was bad to start the season. But I really liked the game overall from Yan Kuznetsov. His development, his growth, for me, was really getting there. And so for me, he surpassed what I thought he would be. I thought he'd be a bottom pair at best in the National Hockey League, and a guy who would get your 8 to 12 minutes and be an okay guy on the third pair. Instead, he's kind of a guy they relied on to take some minutes away from other guys to help produce defensively and be another shutdown guy for the Flames. And for me, so I'm going to give this guy an A- because I think he's really surpassing what we thought of him. I do wonder if there's more he could give offensively as well in his game, and that's something that he'll have to develop. But overall, I thought that he was tremendous. What'd you make of Jan and his rookie season with the Flames?
Yeah, it was incredible. Like you said, he starts the year on waivers. The Flames keep Daniil Miramanov over Yan Kuznetsov, which in hindsight looks like an absolutely insane thing to do. But yeah, he goes down to the minors and good on he worked hard. He sounds like he didn't complain. He just put his head down and grinded. And when he got his opportunity to come to the NHL and the Flames, he took full advantage of it. Now it's to the point where I don't think Kuznetsov will ever play in the American Hockey League again. I think he's established himself as a full-time NHLer, and that's big for the Flames, who don't have a lot of depth on the left side of their defense. In their prospect system, for the future, and even on the NHL roster right now, it was really important that Kuznetsov stepped up and showed that he could be, kind of like a Kevin Bahl-esque type of player. I think that's actually a pretty decent comparison for the two guys, because they're both big, they're both strong, they're both good defensively, but they're not going to wow you with offense, and that's totally fine. You need those types of players, especially when on the right side of the defense, there's a lot of skill and there's a lot of puck moving and offensive capability there. So, yeah, I mean, overall, I didn't expect Kuznetsov to play this well this year. Like, when he was on waivers at the beginning of the year, I know me personally, I was more upset about guys like Cairns and Solovyov. I actually thought Solovyov was a better player than Kuznetsov, and I was completely wrong there. So, ended up having a really good year. I think the future is bright for him. I think you'd be happy if he's on your third pairing. If Kevin Bahl is your second pair left shot guy, Kuznetsov is your third pair left shot guy, I think you're really happy with the Flames if you're the Flames moving forward with that type of situation. So, yeah, I gave Kuznetsov an A because I didn't really even expect him to be an NHL player this year, and he stepped up and he was really solid. And like you said, he was playing with a struggling Mackenzie Weegar. That's not an easy situation for a rookie to come into the NHL with, when you're playing with a guy who, Weegar was awful this year.
Yeah, it was.
So to go in and kind of stabilize him a little bit, and having to play with him and still, play at the level you did, I thought was really impressive. So yeah, looks like Kuznetsov could potentially be a long-term member of this D-Corps, which is fantastic for the Flames and exciting for him.
And much like Kevin Bahl, I think this is going to be a guy that's going to solidify this defense for the Flames and allow, again, a guy like Parekh or Bruzstewicz or, like I mentioned, maybe a Landon Dupont if the lottery balls fall next year in our favor, and allow them to play their game. Well, he is that anchor at the back end who is steady and is allowing those guys to play their game. So really big steps for me on Kuznetsov. Like he's one of a few defensemen that really took massive steps for the Flames. And we mentioned it on multiple podcasts that you need these guys to take steps eventually. This is a second round draft pick that it took a bit to get here, but once it started to pay off, it paid off in dividends for the Flames. And yeah, I don't think he's going to go anywhere, like you mentioned, Robert. I think he's here to stay, and I think he's going to be a good force, whether it's second pair or third pair or whatever else might happen for this player. And another guy who's wearing another elite jersey numbered at 37. I quite like that from him in Yan Kuznetsov. The blue line continues to bear riches, like I mentioned, Robert, of guys who are blossoming and guys who are taking the next step. This next guy is no different. Hunter Bruzstewicz was part of that Lindholm trade, and people were really excited that we were able to bring him in here. And he, again, another second-round draft pick that develops himself into an NHL player. What'd you make of Hunter's season? I thought he peaked a little bit, and then after the trade deadline, it kind of went downhill a little bit for a while after his recall from the Wranglers after being down there for the Olympic break. What'd you make of his season overall? Because good growth. Good learning experience for him, a little bit up and down near the end for me, but still like what we saw at number 48.
Yeah, I think the way you described it there was really good. Like I think there were some ups and some downs, but the progression he made I thought was really solid. To be called up from the American League, and then once again he got put in like a pretty big role. I mean, for most of his time in the NHL this season, he was playing top 4 minutes, mainly due to injuries, but I thought he was really solid. I thought he played those minutes really well. And to do that once again at like age 20, 21 years old, I thought was super impressive. The thing I like most about his game is I just think he's a very smart player. I think he makes a lot of good reads. He makes a lot of good passes. He sees the ice really well. And, I think he's kind of your kind of prototypical modern day puck moving defenseman. So yeah, I think he's got the brain, and I think he's got the skill and the playmaking to be an NHL player. I just think he'll need to definitely, add on some muscle. I think he needs to get a little bit faster, and when it comes to things like winning board battles and playing defense and breaking up cycles and all that kind of stuff, I think there's area for improvement there. But, like I said, he's 21 years old. Like he's got plenty of time to work on that aspect of his game. So yeah, I was really impressed by him. My letter grade for him was a B, because there were nights where he was outstanding, like where he was really good, and then there were other nights where it looked like the NHL game was a little much for him. So if he can just kind of, like I said, work on his size, his strength, and come into next season just like maybe a little bulkier and maybe a little bit quicker, I think the sky's the limit for this guy. Like I could see him being a solid second or third pair defenseman for the Flames for a long time. I'm a big fan of his, and yeah, I thought he played pretty well for a guy in his rookie season on a really bad team this year.
He showed up a year earlier than I thought we'd see him as well, too, which is good on him for taking advantage and putting in the work and almost forcing the hands of Craig Conroy and Ryan Huska to bring him in and play him games. And then once he was brought in to play those games, he took advantage of the situation. And of course, there's going to be tough nights. 21-year-old in the NHL, that's not an easy thing to do. Learning the game as a defenseman there. So I'm with you there, Robert. A B+ is where I went with him, and I liked what I saw from him. And I expect big things from him now. I expect him to be a guy who fights for top 4 minutes, a guy who might be a second pair defenseman in this league, if not more, and a guy who I think can blossom into being a power play guy as well for the Flames, running maybe power play unit 2, because we all know where Parech's going to be, and that's good. That's what you need. It's going to also enhance with internal competition with guys like Henry Muse coming behind him in a year or so or 2 years. guys that are going to be pushing for that job as well. So it's good on Hunter for taking advantage of the situation. Now where the expectations go up, and now you hope to see it again going into next season. But you can't help but love what you saw from number 48. So it's a good season from her. The Flames blue line, man, really blossomed this year. You had Kevin Bahl taking a huge step. We saw Kuznetsov take a huge step, and we saw good progression from Parekh and Hunter Bruzstewicz. I think that's good makings of a defense going forward, Robert? Not bad from a Flames point of view.
Yeah, I think so too. And then if you can add a Keaton Verhoff or a Carson Karls to that mix, I think you're really happy with what the future is going to look like on the blue line.
Mm-hmm. And plus, if you're picking at the top of the draft, the next 27 and 28, there's going to be defensemen there that you could add to the mix as well. So it's a good spot to be in if you're Flames. And this is what rebuilding is all about. It's about collecting these assets. And at the end of the day, if they Flames don't have too many defensemen, oh no, what a bad problem to have if you're trying to run an NHL franchise, eh? Too many defensemen. The last in-depth guy we're going to go into here, Robert, is the goaltender, the guy that everyone anointed as the next guy, the next Kiprusoff. We heard those comparisons. This guy's incredible. This guy's going to be the guy who leads the Flames to the promised land, and I believe most of those things myself. I'm quite the fan of Dutin Wolf and what he can be for the Flames potentially moving forward, the role that he's going to carve out for himself. His work ethic is almost second to none on this team. He's great in the community, and he had a season, though, where I think he struggled, but then got better as the season went on, and you have your expectations for this player that go up and up every time you see him because you think he's going to be a top 5, top 10 goaltender in this league. Where are you at with Dutin Wolf, his game, what you saw this year? Because interesting season, especially given the fact that Devin Cooley was pushing him the whole way as well.
Yeah, it was kind of hit and miss for Dutin Wolf. There were a lot of nights, especially at the end of the season, where he looked like the Dutin Wolf of last season and was stealing games for the Flames. And then there were some nights where it looked like he was kind of struggling and looked like the league had kind of maybe figured him out a little bit. So yeah, it was up and down. The expectation coming into the year, I think, was too high for Wolf. Like
you're not alone.
Saying, yeah, I think me and a lot of other Flames fans were probably in a similar boat. Like I was saying that, he should be playing 65 plus games, and I thought that there was a legitimate chance for him to be in the Vezina Trophy conversation, all that kind of stuff. And that didn't really even come close to end up happening this year, which is too bad for Wolf. But I'm still confident long term that he's the guy. He's such a freak athlete. Like he's just the way he moves side to side and the way he reads plays and his reactions. And you can just tell watching Wolf that he's an elite athlete in net. And, I guess it just kind of comes down to consistency. Like, can he consistently be that kind of top 10 goalie in the NHL that he proved that he probably could be in his rookie season? Can he get back to that level on a more consistent basis? And, that whole idea of, did the league figure him out? There is, like, when you're watching some of these games and some of these camera angles that they're showing, players take shots on Wolf at, and, there is a lot of net exposed with Wolf. But I mean, like I said, because of his position, because of his smarts, because of his athleticism, normally it's not an issue. But there are some times when these high-end NHL shooters can beat him high and can find open space in the net there. So it's going to be interesting to see if he's able to kind of fix that part of his game and get back to being the rookie Dutin Wolf we saw. But as of right now, I have no issues or no concerns with him moving forward whatsoever. I still think he's the goalie of the future here, and I think the Flames are lucky to have him, and I can almost guarantee he's going to bounce back and have a much better season next year. So yeah, the letter grade I would give him is a B-. I thought he performed a little below expectations, and but like I said, I don't really have any worries about him for the future.
Yeah, I think this year was a good learning year for Dutin Wolf. A lot of young goaltenders need a year like this to learn from. I do give cadence to they figured him out conversation because of some of the goals he let in. He does have to work on making that glove maybe a little quicker, but his athleticism is incredible. It's high level, and if he can figure that out, he'll be just fine, I think, in this league. And I think the product of his environment a little bit. This whole Flames season, this whole Flames team, we've used the same like 2 or 3 words the whole time, and that was inconsistency for this team. And then guys were just not playing up to the back of their hockey cards. So when you're in an environment that's so inconsistent, it's hard to be a consistent goaltender. So that, I do believe, factors into all of it. But that being said, you got to battle through it. You got to show that you are going to be reliable, that you are there, that you are a guy that the Flames can count on. And for me, I'm going to give him a C+ because he did fall below the expectations put before him this season, much like a lot of Flames did. But at the same time, I don't worry about him going forward. I still think that he can excel at this level. We've seen him excel at every level. We've seen him learn from the previous year and get bigger and stronger in his abilities. And so I have no doubt that he can do it again, because that's all we've seen from Dutin Wolf is his ability to get better each and every season. I really hope that internal competition with Devin Cooley continues, though, to continue to push him for those starts, because that's, in my opinion, that's one of the best things for a player, is that people pushing him and trying to take his job from him, trying to take starts away from him. And I think that's going to benefit Dustin a lot, because that's what you need for him is, hey, if you're not going to be the guy that's up to snuff, we got Devin Cooley here that's going to take these starts away from you. And we like him and we trust him. We talked about him a couple episodes ago as well, how much the Flames have faith in this guy as well. So Flames goaltending I think is in good hands moving forward. Just need to see a little bit of growth here from Dutin Wolf now heading into the 26-27 season.
Yeah, those are good points. And the last thing I'll add to Wolf is just, I think we do need to give him probably a little bit of a break for this year, because the team in front of him was terrible.
Yeah, spot on.
Like they were really bad. They they gave both goalies little to no run support. They were dead last in the NHL in goals. They were not a very good defensive team this year. The players in front of Wolf and Cooley really struggled, and Cooley just had this ridiculous year. He was literally one of the best goalies in the NHL. So it was just kind of one of those freakish years, and for Dutin Wolf's sake, just like I said, I think we do have to give him a little bit of a break, because the team in front of him was really, really bad.
That's putting it lightly. At the time of their trades, Mackenzie Weegar was -35, so I don't think that helps very much. And Rasmus Andersson was only a +3 when he was traded, so it's not like you didn't get the environment, like I mentioned, which just wasn't good for a goaltender. And if you got to fight through it, you got to take your lumps, and this is definitely a learning season. But the Flames environment this year was not great. We'll put it that way. There's still a few guys left on this roster we haven't talked about, Robert, but they're kind of minor players, or were unsure players, or had seasons where they missed most of the year. So let's take a quick second here and kind of talk about these guys real quick here. So let's start with Martin Pospisil. What'd you make of the limited time we saw from Marty here?
Yeah, I feel bad for Pospisil. I think his struggles this year were because of injury. Mm-hmm. He did have a concussion, and I think that's 4 or 5, major concussions for him in his career. And I just don't think he was the same player when he returned to the lineup. And he wasn't that wrecking ball. He wasn't that guy who was able to use his speed to create chaos on the forecheck. He wasn't an effective offensive player. He really didn't do much defensively. So yeah, it was a write-off of a year for Martin Pospisil. And I don't blame him entirely for it. I kind of blame the injuries for it. So if you're the Flames, you're hoping that he comes back next year and has that kind of fearless element to his game and brings back that physicality and that rat sort of element to his game, because if he's not that type of player, then I actually don't really think he's an NHL player. So he's got to get back to being that pest. And that's going to be tough, because that requires a lot of physicality, and it requires him to, get in the face of opposition, and it requires him to make big hits and to forecheck hard. And, when you have a concussion history like he does, that's pretty scary for a guy like him. So we'll see what happens next year. He's going to be on year 1 of a 3-year contract extension. And, for his sake, I hope he can get back to being a full-time NHLer, and hopefully he can put the injuries and put last season behind him.
It's tough to jump into a season 2/3 of the way through. It's probably even tougher to do so after a big concussion injury. There's a neck injury I read about as well with Marty there. And you have the Olympic break in there, and he plays at the Olympics. And it was a tough go for Marty. And I'm with you on all you said there, Robert. I think we can chalk a lot of this up to the being behind the eight ball because of the injuries. And the hope now is that he learns from this season. He has a good off season. He comes into next season with full of piss and vinegar, for lack of a better term, and takes advantage. We know he's going to get the opportunity from Ryan Huska, and he's got to take advantage of that opportunity. We've talked on many episodes of this podcast about, hey, there are people coming for those jobs, and if he's not ready, that job will not be his for very much longer. So we'll see it is. The other guy that suffered a lot of injuries and an early injury of the season, and it sucks because he started the season so well. He was well on the way for me earning an A letter grade on the season based on the expectations we had for Sam Honzek. That injury was devastating for me, and I'm hoping that he can pick up where he left off going into next season because I now have a bit bigger of hopes. If I could talk here, it'd be great for Sam Honzek going into the next season. What'd you make of Sam and what he put forth this year?
Yeah, I agree with you. He was really good. I thought his NHL season, I'd say like the first 4 or 5 games, I think he was finding his legs a little bit. I think he was still kind of figuring out the game, but it felt like, after game 5 or maybe even like go up to like game 10, from game 10 onward, it looked like he was really starting to figure out his role in the NHL, how he can be effective. And, he was playing on a line with Michael Backlund and Blake Coleman and looked really good. He was flying out there. His skating looked fantastic. He started to up the physicality a little bit. And then on the offensive side of things, he was starting to generate, quite a few chances. Like he was looking really good. And had he stayed healthy the whole year, I think we would have seen a fantastic progression from him. I think he would have clearly established himself as a full-time NHL player. But unfortunately, just a freak accident when he ran into Michael Backlund there. Totally bizarre. And I felt bad for Honzek having to go through that. But basically from the start of the season, where my expectations were compared to where they were by the time he played his final game, he went from being a guy who I didn't even know if he was going to be a full-time NHL player to being a guy where it was like, okay, it looks like he has the potential to be a very a middle six forward on this team for a long time and play kind of a Blake Coleman, Joel Farabee type of role for the team. So yeah, great progression from him. Too bad he got hurt, but I'm excited to see what he can do next year.
Yeah, I want him to get past these injuries because they've been so unfortunate for the last couple of years, and I want him to be the player that Craig Conroy envisioned when he passed up on a lot of other skilled players in that draft to get Mr. Honzek because he is so high on the guy. I want to see that guy come forward. We'll see what he brings next year. This next guy is all you, Robert. I've got nothing to say about this next player because he's just, for me, was no disrespect, of course. He was just a replacement level guy, and they took a flyer on John Beecher via the waivers, brought him in, and he, for me, was just a guy. What about you?
I didn't mind the idea of picking him up off of waivers just because of his age and draft pedigree and all that kind of stuff. It's like, why not take a shot on him? The Flames, they've been struggling to find a fourth line center. Justin Kirkland wasn't the guy. They don't think Sam Morton's the guy. So yeah, why not take a chance on someone like Beecher? And, I don't think it worked out. I don't think Beecher was all that effective. And yeah, I if I were the Flames, I would not re-sign him. I would just let him walk as a free agent, and it was a worthwhile gamble, and I don't think it worked out, and that's totally fine. So yeah, I think the Flames should definitely move on with him. Yeah, not much more else to say other than that.
Flames moved out Nazem Kadri and brought in Victor Olofsson, was probably to help make the money work most of all. The guy saw 18 games, got 6 points. I had no expectations for this player. He was just part for me. He was just part of the let's get the move done in this trade. What'd you make of Victor Olofsson? And is there any part of you that brings back this guy for next year?
No, definitely not. He can go as a free agent. Like you said, he was just essentially a cap dump, and like I'll give the guy credit. Like to be moved from the Colorado Avalanche, who look like they're probably going to the Stanley Cup final, to go from playing there to a team that's guaranteed to miss the playoffs, like that sucks. And he could have come in and pout his way to the end of the season and have a bad attitude and be a bad teammate and all that kind of stuff, and he didn't do that. So I give him credit for that. And he scored a few really nice goals. Like that shot is lethal. So yeah, they scored a couple fun ones, but overall, yeah, don't really have much else to say other than that. He'll definitely be a free agent this summer. I'd be stunned if the Flames brought him back.
I wish him well wherever he goes. Joel Hanley is a player that's very interesting to me. He ended up being a guy that the Flames actually counted on at the end of the year after they made some moves with Anderson and Weegar out, and he played a long time and a lot of time, I should say, and he played with Bruzstewicz a lot, and he really had a nice role on this team as that 6th, 7th defenseman. He played it very, very well. I didn't have expectations really for a guy like Joel Hanley, so you give him a nice B plus A grade somewhere in there, saying, "Hey, thanks for all the hard work. You're signed next year, so we'll see you next year." Unfortunate injury that ends his season earlier than he probably would have wanted to. But what'd you make of? I almost wanted to call him Father Joel because he feels so much older than everybody else, but he really isn't. But what'd you make of Mr. Hanley there and the job that he did for the Flames?
Yeah, I thought Father Joel had a pretty solid year. Played a career high 68 games, which is great for him. I mean, pretty interesting story and a cool story for him. He's very much a journeyman in the NHL. He's 34 years old. He's gonna be 35 next season. And yeah, he's definitely a late bloomer, and I think he's been really good since joining the Flames, and this year was no different. I just thought he was rock solid on a third pair. I thought he was a pretty good partner for Zane Parekh in a lot of games, and he's just steady Eddie. You know exactly what you're going to get from him. It's not going to be anything flashy. Like he's just a solid defensive player, and he's going to block shots, and he's going to fight and hit and do all those things. So yeah, I respect the guy's game. He is a guy who I would like to see the Flames move this summer. I think they have too many defensemen, and I also think you don't want to tempt Ryan Huska to play a guy like Joel Hanley over a guy like Zane Parekh. I think that would be because like you just know with Huska, like he'll try to find a way to get some veterans in the lineup, and I think if you're Craig Conroy, I think you just want to take that option away from him. But yeah, Hanley's been a really good Flame, for a guy who's picked up off waivers, like. A really good move by the Flames, good pro scouting, and he's been a solid third pair guy. So yeah, I got nothing but good things to say about him.
Wherever you move Blake Coleman to, just attach Joe Hanley to that trade and allow him to go play somewhere else. I love Hanley. I thought he was a good player for the Flames and definitely worthwhile for a waiver pickup. Last guy on the list here is a guy who made his broadcast debut in the playoffs too, Robin. I thought he did a pretty good job on Hockey Night in Canada alongside those other guys. Ryan Strome, tough season for him in Anaheim. He gets moved at the deadline, comes to Calgary. Calgary brings him in as this veteran center, veteran voice in the room, and it paid off because he seemingly took off after that and became one of the Flames' better players, one of the Flames' most reliable players, and seemed to really relish the role of being that old veteran on a team of younger players. Would you make of Ryan Strome in that deal? And is this a guy you're trying to move along the season as well, or do you think that maybe you want to attach a year or two at the end of this contract for Stromer?
I'm undecided at this point. I guess I think you have to wait and see just how some of the Flames prospects progress. But like I was thoroughly impressed by Strome, particularly off the ice. Like he just automatically went to the Flames, went into that dressing room, and instantly became one of the main leaders on that team. And if you watch the last couple episodes of The Chase, there's a lot of great behind the scenes footage of Strome being a good leader. And, on the ice, he was really good too. 12 points in 19 games. That's a 52-point pace over 82, which is really strong. So, yeah, I was just impressed by his leadership capabilities. He played well on the ice. He took a guy like Connor Zary under his wing. He was taking Zane Parekh under his wing. He does everything right. Like he just does it the right way. I'm thoroughly impressed by the person. And, yeah, I would definitely start the year with him next year. I definitely wouldn't trade him this summer because I do think that he's an important part of the leadership group to kind of move this team forward. In terms of, signing him or trading him, like I said, I would see how the season plays out, see how he's playing, how he feels about being a Flame, see how some of your younger guys are progressing, and then make your decision from there. But if I were the Flames, I would kind of take it up to the deadline, and if you want to keep him past the deadline, then sign him to like another year. If you want to move him out and there's some decent trade value, then trade him by the deadline. That's kind of how I would approach it, because I do see, like, I could see Strome being, you know, like a Matt Stajan type of player for the Flames, where if they want to bring him back for another year or two, like, he could play on that third or fourth line. Like, I'd have no problem with him playing in that role, because the Flames center prospects, I mean, it feels like Reshny he still needs time to develop. Like, I still feel like he's a couple years away. Stocksilius is definitely a couple years away. You know, I don't think they're going to get a high end center in this draft, so you don't have to worry about that. So there's not like a ton of prospects coming over the short term here. So I would have no problem with them bringing him back. But like I said, let's just kind of see how things play out. But overall, thoroughly impressed. He shattered my expectations both on and off the ice. Just really, really impressed with Ryan Strome. And you're right, actually, he was really good on Hockey Night in Canada. He was a very good broadcaster.
Yeah, he's definitely got a career after hockey if he definitely wants it. And I got to add, because I'm a dad as well as Ryan. I thought it was very cute how he handled his girls as well after being traded, and the time away could not have been easy for him, and the way that he reacted when they were around, it was quite awesome to see. So he's a genuine good human. And I thought he was a good Flame as well, and he did quite well for the Flames. So I'm okay if they keep him. I don't think there's a wrong answer with how they go forward with Ryan Strome, whether it's keep him, trade him, or just walk him free agency. Who cares? I think this is a win-win for the Flames, for the person that he is and what he provided for the Flames this year. That does it, Robert. Those are our letter grades this year. Anything that we missed that you wanted to bring up with these guys? Or if not, let's what's coming up from you on flamesnation.ca.
No, that was pretty comprehensive. Like, yeah, we went in depth there with all these guys, which was a lot of fun. So yeah, it was a good way to look back on the season and kind of talk about the future of these players as well. Because yeah, there's a lot of question marks with a lot of these players. So no, that was fun. And then yeah, Flames Nation, just lots of draft coverage, lots of looking back on some old playoff moments and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, lots of fun stuff going on.
It was definitely a hard season in the moment, but you look back on it, it was more than just a season full of losses. There was a lot that went into the season. I'm glad we broke down these players and what we thought of them and their seasons. And there were definitely some bright spots, like the Gridins, like the Pareks, like the Bruzstewicz, and there were definitely some things that we needed to move on from and learn from, like the Mackenzie Weegar and Rasmus Anderson things. And the Flames are in a spot now heading into the draft where they have a path in front of them. They've chosen a rebuild. They've gone down that path, and now we hope and pray for pick 6 and what might be there. We'll talk more about that as well as we head towards the draft. He is Robert Munich, as Ring of Fire CGY on Twitter or X, whatever you're calling it. I'm Vintage Johnny 84, and of course, the show is Red Mile Rundown, wherever you get your podcasts and do your social mediaing. We are there for you. Thank you so much for making us a part of your podcast rotation. Enjoy the hockey this week. The playoffs have been tremendous, and more to come. We'll see you next week here on the show. Stay safe, everyone.